All right, today marks the 74th anniversary of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombings, where the U.S. dropped 2 atomic bombs on civilian populations in Japan, killing approximately 250,000 people. And though this was the only time in history that nukes have been used, with the recent death of the INF Treaty, global security is perhaps at greater risk than ever before, as these types of weapons have not only become more powerful, but now more states have nuclear capability. Joining us to discuss, Dr. Timmon Wallis. He's the executive director at Nuclear Ban. Dr. Wallis, good to see you. So first, on this dark anniversary, what do we need to understand about the use of nukes in Japan? And are the people there still suffering from its effects now 74 years later?
Well, as you said, 250,000 people were killed roughly in the 2 cities initially. Those cities are both now modern, bustling cities. They've recovered as cities like Leningrad, St. Petersburg, Berlin, London. You know, cities recover, they rebuild. But in the case of these atomic bombs, the impact still is still there in those cities. There are still people dying from the bombs that were dropped more than 70 years ago, because radiation, acute doses of radiation cause death quite quickly. But we know now that lower levels of radiation kill for decades, and people get cancers literally 30 or 40 years later, and these eventually lead to complications and people die. And they've kept an ongoing record of the number of the actual names of all the victims of these 2 bombs, and that now is well over 400,000 people that have died since the bombs were dropped.
Right, so it's not just the death toll immediately following the dropping of the bombs, but the continued death toll keeps climbing because of its after effects. So, Dr. Wallis,
yes.
We as a people, as a society, have we learned anything from Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Well, Presidents Reagan and Gorbachev said when they were signing the INF Treaty that you mentioned, nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. And most people in the world instinctively know that and know these weapons are unacceptable and cannot be used ever again. But I wouldn't say everybody, certainly not our political leaders at the moment. The world is rising up. As you know, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons bans everything to do with these weapons. And we've just had our two countries ratified the treaty just this week. We're now up to 25 ratifications. We've got more than 25 in line to ratify in the next year or so. So we will see this treaty entering into force and expressing the will of the vast majority of countries and of people in the world. But we've still got a long way to go in this country and in the other nuclear weapon states who are continuing to modernize their weapon systems. And we've got so many weapons who are, many of them, much more powerful than the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that can do nothing except cause unbelievable damage and death to millions of innocent civilians.
Professor, do you think the nuclear threat still exists in the modern day? And how does the sunset of the INF Treaty play into all of this?
Well, the INF Treaty, demise of the INF Treaty is hugely significant and very worrying. The New START Treaty is the next one that comes up for renewal, and we know that there are people in the Trump administration who want to let that one fall by the wayside as well. And we've seen the demise of the Iran deal and other things which make the world a much more dangerous place than people realize. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists have kept this clock, the doomsday clock, to remind us of how close we are to a nuclear holocaust. That's varied from 2 minutes to midnight to almost 20 minutes to midnight. And at the moment, it's back down to 2 minutes to midnight, the closest it's been since the 1950s.
And Dr. Wallis, last question for you here is, how do you view the increased tensions between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, given that both states are nuclear capable?
Yes, well, it's very worrying. And we know that, India and Pakistan have fought a number of wars since India first had nuclear weapons back in the 70s. And now Pakistan has as well. They fought a war, the Kargil War in 1999, after both countries had tested nuclear weapons. Very, very dangerous. They've had skirmishes. As you know, there was a recent bombing just last year over Kashmir. And now the Indian government has made this new statement about Kashmir, which just heightens the risk and the danger. And we know now from the climate scientists that even a small-scale, relatively small-scale nuclear war between India and Pakistan would have enormous impacts on the climate globally, could involve global temperatures falling rather than rising, and killing billions of people from starvation because of the concentration, the density of the population in that area, and how this plays out across the globe.
All right, we will leave it right there. Dr. Timmon Wallis of Nuclear Ban, thank you for joining us today with your expertise.
Thank you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.